Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
They put up this stat on the screen. It said, when the Canadians score 3 goals or more, their record is 17-4. But when they score less than 3 goals, their record is 4-17. Obviously, if you score more goals, your record is going to be better. Do you need to tell me that?
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Okay, Skip, so I know today we were supposed to talk about our favorite cities, but we're going to take a little break from our normal routine, and rather than do our favorite cities, we're going to do an old school episode where we just basically talk about stuff that have been on our minds for the past, let's say, month, because we haven't really done an episode like this in about a year. And there's a bunch of stuff that I know you want to talk about and I want to talk about. And some of them might even be the same.
Do you remember when it was that we switched formats to like the favorites or the top sevens?
It was about 10 months ago is my guess.
Yeah, I was going to say 10 to 12 months, right? Like, cause
it wasn't 12. Definitely wasn't 12.
Because when the pandemic started, we still kept doing our normal show for a little while. And
That's
then
right.
Eventually we switched.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do this. When you called me this week and you said, I have an idea, I want to go back to sort of the way we were doing things before because I have so many things to talk about. I was like, I'm all in because I've got this big list of weird topics, you know, sports, TV, pop culture, news, whatever. And like, let's talk about these and give the favorite cities, you know, a week, push that, you know, they got bumped. Sorry, the cities, but you got bumped.
That's okay. And, but before we get to, you know, our random thoughts of the month, I know that you have a bunch of listener mail from our last topic. So
yeah,
we should, in chronological order, go through that first.
Mailbag.
The last episode was our favorite Canadian bands or musical artists, and we did have like quite a big response.
Was there any response from any of our American listeners?
Yeah, there was actually. So we got responses from all the different formats, you know, Facebook and Twitter and email. So of course, our friend Jesse, who's out in Dallas, Texas, he gave his top Canadian artists, and as you could imagine, it's much more mainstream than some of the stuff that we came up with. So he has Leonard Cohen, The Band, The Guess Who, Arcade Fire, Bare Naked Ladies, Avril Lavigne, and then real old school Paul Anka.
Wow.
So I thought that was quite a list from Jesse. I kind of enjoyed that. The rest are all Canadians, and you know there are real like hardcore listeners. So you know, via Twitter, our buddies over at the Nooks and Crannies podcast, that's Matt Sanderson, who's out in British Columbia. He said, great episode, guys. I have some thoughts and debates. And he was upset with us that we did not have Gordon Lightfoot and Joni Mitchell. And we mentioned Joni Mitchell, and I explained why. And I understand if people are passionate about Joni Mitchell, by all means. I think she obviously could be she means a lot to a lot of people. Gordon Lightfoot, I mean, I can't get behind that.
That's
one.
just not my kind of music. That's all.
No, that's it. And then of course we had a bunch of stuff, a bunch of comments in our Facebook. So my sister Stephanie, she said it's very tough, and she gave her list, which included Sarah McLachlan, Chantal Kreviazuk, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Blue Rodeo, Loverboy, Tragically Hip, Alanis Morissette, April Wine, Jan Arden, and Cowboy Junkie. So obviously that's more than 7. And then our good buddy Derek, who, you know, just lives down the street from me, said solid lists. Definitely would have had Burton Cummings and the Guess Who on my list, which is a bit surprising, and more love for the Bare Naked Ladies. And he's also, I mean, I actually saw him in person, and he said it on Facebook, and he told me in person he can't wait for our top 7 cities. He's already got his list done. So Derek, sorry, you're gonna have to wait another week or maybe 2. And then our buddy Jason, who's out here in Montreal, and he said my list would have included Bruce Cockburn, Triumph, Guess Who? I mean, a bunch of people said the Guess Who, and April Wine. And he said he was a little bit surprised. He said, surprised no mention of any of these musicians or bands. So actually, we didn't mention any of these. I don't think I mentioned the Guess Who at all. So
I don't think we did.
Yeah, so there's the Josh, there's the listener mail. It was pretty solid contributions from all our listeners, and I thank everybody for submitting on, all the different platforms that we have, which is great.
Fantastic.
And I have a note from last week. I want my own, you like to put your own mail.
Yes.
Mail
yes.
yourself. So I made a note to myself. I wanted to apologize to Jeff Healy Band and to Sam Roberts because they were the only two people or acts on our list that didn't get a sound clip when we talked about them.
And there were so many clips you could have chosen.
I know there was just an oversight by me, so I'm just gonna apologize to those two.
All right, so now we're gonna get into today's actual episode, where I have a bunch of random thoughts, and so do you. And I'd like to start with baseball, if that's okay with you.
Major League Baseball.
I love it.
So, do you remember? I think it was last year and the year before, where we seemed to have a regular segment on the show where I told you about strange baseball injuries.
Yeah, like the guy who hurt his back from carrying his luggage, or maybe he tweaked his knee. Anthony Rizzo said he injured his back from the hotel bed.
Yes, that's right. This could only happen to baseball players because they are the biggest wimps.
They are.
So listen to this one. I read this and I said, I can't wait to tell Skip about this. Yeah. There's a pitcher on the Oakland A's. His name is Jesus Luzardo. I think I'm pronouncing his name properly.
He's quite good.
He is quite good. But listen to this. He apologized to his team because he broke his finger while playing video games.
Broke his finger?
I'm not making this up.
I could see like you straining your hand, or you get some kind of carpal tunnel thing, where your thumbs and fingers are sore, or maybe not like working how you want them to, but broken finger. Come on.
He broke his finger while playing a video game. And so when I read this, I'm like, this is hilarious. This is just too funny.
Well, I mean, good luck to him. Is he on the DL? Well, no, it's not called the DL anymore. It's called the
IL,
right?
Yes.
So he's on the IL.
Well, I mean, this happened 11 days ago, so I don't know if he's still on the IL, but I mean, a finger takes a while to heal, right?
I guess, but if it's on his glove hand, he could still pitch.
It's actually his pinky finger on his pitching hand.
There you go. So he's out. Upper body injury. Beautiful. Do you have any more baseball?
I do have another baseball note, actually.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Because this is also something we talked about. You remember, this could have been a year ago or something. I'm not sure exactly when. We talked about the unwritten rules of baseball.
Wow, there's so many. No sport has more unwritten rules than baseball.
Right, but we said how stupid the fact that there is unwritten rules. Like, why does it even exist? So, just this week, GQ interviewed Noah Syndergaard.
Right.
And Noah Syndergaard, his quote was, when they asked him about the unwritten rules of baseball, he said, "I think they're pretty stupid, to be honest." And then he went on to say, "Anything unwritten sounds pretty stupid. I think it's very old school, and I think there needs to be a new school approach." And there's a few other quotes in the story, but the point being, he thinks that if someone hits a home run, the pitcher should not hit the next batter or hit that same batter the next time he comes up to bat. And I've been saying this for a while. Like, if the guy hit a home run, he did his job. So you do your job and try to get him out next time. Don't hit him on the back or the arm or wherever.
I'd like to see Noah Syndergaard's reaction next time Fernando Tatis Jr. hits a home run off of him and he flips his bat. What's going to happen?
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because here I'll read you a clip from the article. Syndergaard recalled a specific moment when Padres shortstop Fernando Tatis Jr. hit 2 home runs off Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer and followed them up with a celebration. Even after the game, the two of them were trash talking with each other on Twitter. Syndergaard chimed in to support Tatis Jr. because of his past confrontation with Bauer.
It's great. I used Tatis Jr. as an example because he's known for that bat flip, and I knew about this stuff with Bauer. So that's interesting. I love it. Love it. The quicker this old school stuff gets out of the game, the better it is. And it's going to start, right? Because the only reason why it's still in the game now is because the managers are, like, all the managers are ex-players. But soon you're going to have managers that are young. Like, for example, like...
some of them are already young.
Yeah, exactly. So soon, the manager base is going to keep getting younger and younger, and eventually the sport will kind of get rejuvenated because, I mean, God knows if any sport needs to be rejuvenated, it's baseball. I mean,
And before I let you go with your next topic or your first topic, I do have one more baseball note.
yeah.
So, there's been yet another no-hitter in baseball. So there's already 4 this season, and we're only almost, just over a month into the season.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. The latest one was by Wade Miley, and the one before that was by John Means. And remember how you were so surprised when Musgrove got his no-hitter, and it was the first ever no-hitter by a San Diego pitcher.
Right.
So when John Means pitched his no-hitter for Baltimore, I didn't realize this, that's the first Baltimore no-hitter, and Baltimore's been around for a long time. It's the first Baltimore no-hitter since Jim Palmer threw a no-hitter in 1969.
Wow.
Which is before either of us were born.
But it's actually the same amount of time as the Padres have existed, right?
Probably, yes.
Right? So that actually is pretty amazing. Holy smokes. Yeah. Well, you never know. How many more no-hitters are going to be this year? 5 more at least.
There's going to be a bunch because you know how it is. It's like a home run or a strikeout every at-bat. Or a walk, which doesn't affect your no-hitter.
Yeah, and especially with the shifts that they put on, they take away hits. Even if there would be the few singles that would fall through, the shift sort of takes those away too.
I'm fine with that strategy. I mean, if I'm playing defense, I would put the shift on also.
And if I was a left-handed batter and I came up there and I saw that shift, the first thing I do is bunt it down the third baseline. I get into the batting cage. And I bunt down to the left side 600 times until I'm sure I could do it in a game perfectly. Because all you have to do is drop that bunt down the third baseline and you could walk to first base.
Exactly.
And then next time you come up, they're not going to do that shift on you.
Or they will, and then you'll just get another hit.
So let's stick with sports, Josh.
Okay.
The National Hockey League.
I mean, God, like you said, we want to recap stuff that's happened in the past month, and this is more than a couple weeks old. And the NHL playoffs are about to start, which is so exciting. Obviously, our 2 cities are playing. Toronto and Montreal are playing against each other in playoffs.
Just to clarify, even though I live in Toronto, I'm not a Toronto fan.
Right. So the first time those teams are playing since '79, which is great for hockey, great for Canadian fans. It's good when those teams meet. It's always good. But I mean, we're not going to get too much into the NHL playoffs because, honestly, I don't even know what's going on in the other divisions. I mean, I kind of do, but I just wanted to ask you about I know we're on the same page, but the whole Tom Wilson and the New York Rangers, I just find it first of all, he should have been suspended. Everybody in the world knows he should have been suspended. The NHL screwed up. And then the next day, obviously, the Rangers send out this tweet saying that the NHL head of player safety, George Parros, should be fired. And then
I think they said relieved of his duties.
Relieved of duties, right? He was delinquent in his job and he should be relieved of his duties. And then the next day, the Rangers fired their GM and the president of the team. And I was like, okay, did they fire them because they wrote the tweet? Or did they fire them because they didn't agree with the tweet? I'm still actually not 100% sure. And then this is what really bothers me. Because all these reports that came out, and including from the most respected hockey reporter that I know, which is Darren Dreger, reported this. It's not his opinion. It's not his fault. He's reporting this. He's saying the Rangers are saying that it has nothing to do with the tweet and the whole Wilson thing. It's that the owner was dissatisfied with the performance on the ice and he wanted to fire them. I mean, can we call BS immediately?
Actually, I actually believe that because I heard that same exact thing from another reporter who is well respected, Elliot Friedman, who said that the firing had nothing to do with the statement that they released. And knowing the owner of the Rangers, who's the same owner as the Knicks, the guy, James Dolan, is a complete idiot. And I believe it. I believe that he legitimately fired them because of their performance on the ice and not because of the statement.
And it just so happens that it's in the middle of this whole firestorm with Tom Wilson and everything.
Because apparently he wanted to do it a week earlier, I think, but they were on the road, so he wanted to wait until they came home or something, whatever.
Ugh.
I don't know, but
I feel bad. It's funny because it's like it takes the Knicks to be in the playoffs for now the attention to come on the Rangers. Like finally the Knicks are okay. Can't this guy Dolan just like sit back and relax? Like he can't leave well enough alone, right? So now that the Knicks are in the playoffs, he's got to butt in on the Rangers, you know?
Right. Well, because, these owners who are very rich and own teams, they're also very impatient. They want their team to win right away. And so the Rangers had this plan and they were rebuilding, but he felt that it was going too slow and they didn't make the playoffs.
I actually like the Rangers' direction. I mean, they all of a sudden they have a bunch of young players. They're on the upswing. I mean, unfortunately, like you said, he's just impatient. But the funniest thing is about this whole thing is that, Tom Wilson got fined $5,000 because that's the maximum allowable fine in the CBA for
a player.
For a player. And he instead of a suspension, but the Rangers organization got fined $250,000 for sending
a big chunk
tweet.
Of change.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But you know what that is? That's not so much for the statement that they made, but that's because they embarrassed Gary Bettman and the commissioner's office. That's why they got fined that amount, which is yet another reason that I don't like Gary Bettman.
But I mean, I agree that the Rangers should have faced repercussions for that tweet because you can't do that, As much as you agree with it or whatever, like don't put it out there. Call Bettman. Call Bettman and tell him that Parros should be fired. Don't put it in the public.
I'm sure they did call him. We don't know about that phone call, but I'm sure they did. And by the way, speaking of the Rangers, so they didn't make the playoffs. That is true. However, they actually didn't have such a terrible season. For example, if the Rangers were in the Canadian division, they would have made the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. I like their team. Like you can't judge it by this season, Like this is a weird season. Like I don't know. I just think the Rangers are on the upswing and it was premature. And now they're going to start over with a new coach and a new GM and like fired their coach too, right? A few days later,
yes.
I think, or this week.
By the way, the whole going back to the Tom Wilson incident, it took this Tom Wilson incident for hockey to be, I think, the first or second story on PTI, because PTI only talks about hockey when it's something violent or something bad or something negative. And sure enough, this was the first or second story on PTI, I think, 2 days in a row.
Also, Tony and Wilbon are in tune with Washington stuff also.
Right.
So it's even more closer to home. Look, Wilson should not be in the league. I don't care what anybody says. The faster you get this guy out of the league, the better the league is going to be.
At the very least, if they didn't think it was so egregious and they didn't think it warranted a suspension, he should have at least been suspended for one game so that they wouldn't have, because they were playing each other again the very next game, the same two teams. And so that whole brawl that happened right at the face-off, the opening face-off, would not have happened if Tom Wilson had been suspended for just one game.
Right. It was embarrassing, the second game where they all had those fights. It was stupid.
It was. And by the way, that whole incident at the second game was partly because, the Rangers wanted to show the Capitals that they're not pushovers, but it was also a message to Gary Bettman that if you're not going to take matters into your hands, we're going to take matters into our own hands and make a mockery of this.
But how is these like fights right at the start? Well, I guess it's making a mockery, but it doesn't settle any score by this guy fighting that guy, and
No, they weren't trying to settle a score so much with the Capitals as they were trying to settle a score with the league for fining them $250,000.
Your insight on this topic is really strong. I have to commend you.
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm telling you, I heard from other sources.
Right. All right. Well, anyways, that's hockey. That's all I have to say about hockey. So.
Well, since we're on hockey, a couple of other small hockey notes. So as you mentioned, Montreal and Toronto are playing each other for the first time since 1979 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Did you hear Justin Trudeau's comments a few days ago?
Good. It was good.
I was surprised because, politicians, they have to be so politically correct and they can't really take one side or the other because if they do, they're going to piss off half the people. And he really took shots at the Leafs. I was stunned.
Well, he gave them like this backhanded compliment by saying something along the lines of, "You really have to commend these Leaf fans because they've been in such a bad place for so many years, yet they keep coming back for more. You know, they've had their heart broken so many times, and they just keep coming back with the eternal optimism, which is great." And he's never made it a secret about being a Canadiens fan. He's from Montreal. He's from Quebec. His parliamentary riding is in Montreal.
Right.
So, anyways, yeah, I thought that was good. That was good.
I thought it was funny.
Politics is so stupid like lately. It's so stiff and it's all pointing fingers that having a leader being able to sort of lighten things up, I thought that was fun, at least. Hockey should be fun, right?
The National Football League.
And now I'm going to change the topic to the NFL. The NFL, as much as you love and hate, people love to hate the league and everyone hates the commissioner and everything, they do a lot of things right, you know? This week, like, nothing's going on in the NFL, right? They had the draft a couple weeks ago. This week, the schedule came out, the NFL schedule. And somehow the league turns the NFL schedule into some kind of event.
A television show.
Like, it's not even, they actually, like, they went a step further this year because they leaked a lot of stuff. There was stuff that got leaked out by the league, right? So the fans of certain teams could piece together, like, oh, we're playing Dallas on week 1 and we're playing the Giants on week 7, and like they're filling it in like it's like some kind of puzzle, you know? Whereas if you just wait another hour, you just get the whole thing presented to you. Like you said, it's just a calendar, right?
Can you believe that it's just a calendar and they made it into an entire television show?
That's the NFL. That's the power of the NFL. But also, like, that's the fandom of the NFL. It's unreal, the fans, you know?
The NFL annoys me a little bit for all the reasons you just stated. And I don't understand. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand the Green Bay Packers. Like, you know, he's annoyed at them and he wants to go play for another team, and he's entitled to do and say what he wants. And he's one of the few players in the league that can actually force a trade. But why did the Packers last year in the draft pick a quarterback with their first pick? Why did they do that? Were they intentionally trying to piss him off? Like, I don't get that.
Well, I mean, they have to be realistic too. I mean, like, he's 35 years old, Josh.
Okay, but still, they knew that he wasn't going to retire anytime soon.
Yeah.
And, you know, they could have actually picked someone like a wide receiver or someone that would have helped them right away. Yeah. But instead, they picked a guy who's like a project because, I mean, I don't think that guy has played it down yet.
Well, Packer fans have been through this before, right? I mean,
oh, exactly the same thing when they picked him.
They drafted Aaron Rodgers with the complete intention of, like, he's going to be the heir apparent to Brett Favre. And he sat on the bench and did do nothing and held a clipboard for like 2 years. And then they said, sorry, Brett, you can leave now. And we're going to go with the new guy. And I guess Aaron Rodgers didn't want that to happen to him, even though he did that to someone else.
I get that. However, there's a difference because Aaron Rodgers was actually, when he was picked, I believe he was highly touted as, you know, a really good quarterback. This guy that the Packers picked last year, it wasn't one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks available in that draft.
Right. And actually, when you hear things about the Packer organization, I don't think they're sure that he is the next quarterback.
Right. Like, I heard he might be the third stringer this season because they acquired Blake Bortles.
I don't know. I have a good segue if you want to let me take the next topic, Josh.
Go ahead.
TV?
We're going to segue to television, and we binge watched a show the last 10-ish days, 2 seasons of the show, because there's only 2 seasons, and that's Big Little Lies. It's an HBO show. It's also on Crave.
You told me about this.
Yeah, that stars Shailene Woodley, who is Aaron Rodgers' fiance.
Nice segue.
So, by the way, Big Little Lies is a tremendous show. I recommend it to anybody who could watch it. It's really good. Season 1 is fantastic. Season 2 is not as good, but still good. And I just really enjoyed it. And I wanted to tell you, like, we're in a bit of a weird situation in my home in that there's a couple of shows that have started that we know we want to watch. I bookmarked them, so to speak, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But because they only come out once a week... Even on like there's a show with Kate Winslet called The Mayor of Easttown.
I've heard of it.
And it looks amazing and I want to watch it, but it's only coming out once per week. So we're waiting. Like, we want to watch them kind of like all at once or like in the course of a week, you know? So we're like, okay, well, we're going to wait for that. And there's another show that started on Apple TV Plus that I really want to watch called The Mosquito Coast. It's also only releasing once per week. So it's amazing how like our viewing habits have changed where unless we can binge watch it, we don't want to watch it.
That's the same thing as when there's a hockey game that starts at 7, you record it, and then you only start watching it at 7:30, and then you can watch pretty much the entire game without seeing any commercials or intermission.
I guess. But do you record sports? I never could.
No, I don't. But I'm saying some people do that. They'll intentionally wait 30 minutes or 45 minutes after the game has started, watch the recording, and then they can skip all the commercials and the intermissions.
That's tough to do these days because everybody has the phone in their hand. Like, you have to be disciplined, right? Because
I know someone that does it, and I'm like, how do you not find out the score?
And lately, so my son, I turned this off, but my son gets notifications on the score when the Canadians score goals, right? The last few games, the notification comes literally as the puck is going in the net.
Because the feed you're watching on television is a little bit delayed.
It's amazing. Like, I was like, oh my God, it's like the score spoiled what's going on. Like, I think you have to turn those off if you're watching the game.
For sure.
You can't have them on.
You know, I think Budweiser has this goal light.
A light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can set it up in your home, and obviously you have to connect it to some kind of mobile device. And so when your team scores, that light goes on. That's amazing. And so people who have that light have told me that the light goes on before they see the goal on their television.
Oh my God, that's so bad. It defeats the whole purpose of having the light.
Well, then, so those same friends have told me they've turned it off.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's wild. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Do you have any what bugs me? Because I got a huge one.
I don't think I have any, surprisingly, but I do have one other hockey note.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you've been following the Canadiens all season, and you know they've had a lot of injuries lately. And so it got to the point where the last, I guess, 5 games or so, they didn't have any healthy scratches because they basically, whoever was healthy was playing.
Right. Even the guys from the taxi squad. Yeah.
Exactly. So I have a conspiracy theory that I want to run by you.
Okay.
So I don't know. It wasn't the last game. It was like 3 games ago or something. I don't remember exactly which game it was. But they actually got, I think, Tatar came back from an injury. And so they actually were going to have like an extra player. So there was going to be a healthy scratch. But I figured because Michael Frolik, who was on the taxi squad, he had played like, I guess, 2-3 games in a row. I figured he was going to play in this particular game as well.
Yeah.
But they scratched him. They didn't play him. Instead, they used this guy from Laval. His name is Alex Belzile.
Belzile, yeah.
Belzile. Sorry, I'm pronouncing his name wrong. And I'm like, if I'm Michael Frolik and this guy's playing ahead of me, it's not like he's a prospect. He's like old, this guy, right? 30, I think, right? 29, 30 years old, whatever. So if I'm Michael Frolik, I'm like, seriously, this guy's going to play ahead of me? And then I figured it out. I looked at the lineup for that night, and it was the first time all season that both Philip Danault and Jonathan Drouin were not playing. And I said, oh, of course, because they have to have at least one French-Canadian player in the lineup, and that's why he's playing.
You are 100% right, by the way.
Am I?
This is not a conspiracy theory. This is 100% true. Because the next game,
Belzile didn't play the next game.
And that was the first game that there was no French-Canadian player on the Canadiens.
All season long.
Yeah, on how many years? Maybe ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh boy, did the press ever? Oh, I can't stand it here. Like sometimes with the French press, it's disgusting.
I mean, I was half joking when I thought of this.
Yeah,
and I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but
you're right. By the way, it's 100% true. It's 100% true. And there's a reporter that asked Francois Legault. By the way, Francois Legault is like the premier of Quebec. So for our American listeners, it's like the governor. You know. They asked him in his COVID press conference, which he does like twice a week now, did he have any thoughts on how come the Canadians didn't have a French Canadian player in the lineup last night? And he said, well, the team should, he gave like a fairly diplomatic answer, but still saying that he thinks the Canadians should have French players in the lineup. So, Josh, you know how it goes here, the language stuff.
So maybe that was a what bugs me. Maybe
it is. It should be.
So what's bugging you?
Things that bug me?
This has been bugging me for a year. Well, not a year. I would say 6 months. It has to do with COVID. Has to do with vaccinations.
Okay.
So the first time I heard this was right when the vaccinations started. And in England, they started quite a while ago, right? So when you watch British reporters or reporters from Canadian news who are reporting from England, they use the term the jab. Have you heard this?
I don't think I have, actually, but it makes sense.
You've never heard this. So they're like, are you going to get the jab? There's 1 million people in London who got the jab. It's like they're getting stabbed, the jab. So I'm like, okay, that's a cute little British term, like I don't mind that. If that's what they call it in England, that's what they call it in England. You get the jab, right? But now it's on the news here all the time. I hear it every single day on local radio, on CBC News, on CTV News. All the Canadian news sources, they're like every now and then they just slip in like, 100,000 Quebecers got the jab yesterday. I'm like, what the hell? Come up with your own lingo. It bothers the hell out of me. And now the beauty of what bugs me is it doesn't have to be legit. It just bugs me. It really bugs me.
It is legit. If it bugs you, then it counts. That's all that matters.
Because we've co-opted this saying that really has nothing to do with us. We need our own saying.
We do need our own saying, and I haven't heard it. So now that you've mentioned it, I'm going to hear it all the time, probably.
Now, have you heard about this phenomenon? And it happened to me for sure. So when you get a new car, all of a sudden you start noticing all the people driving the same car as you.
I haven't heard of that, but
Okay.
I think I've noticed it myself.
Yeah. So when I got a Subaru, I never noticed the Subaru Crosstrek before. I barely even was aware of this brand, right? Of this model. And then when I got the car, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, there's a Crosstrek. Oh, there's a Crosstrek. Anywhere you go, you see all the Crosstreks.
And do you feel like you should wave to the driver?
I do, because, Subaru, we're like a big happy family. but now that I've told you about the jab, you're going to start hearing, you personally, I bet you're going to start hearing it everywhere. You're going to notice it now.
Remember when I told you how when they said NHL All-Star, how much it bugged me,
Yeah.
and you'd never heard it before, and then after I told you about it, you hear it all the time.
Same thing. Exactly the same thing. Exactly. I'm so happy we did this episode because I needed to talk about all this stuff.
Okay, so I have something, I've left this not necessarily till the end, but this is something I really wanted to talk about. So you recommended a show to me, and I don't know if you recommended it, but you told me about a show you were watching called Sharp Objects. And
I do recommend it, but you told me it was disturbing to you.
I started watching it and I finished watching it, and I have to tell you, this was probably the most difficult show I've ever watched in my life. There were several parts where I literally could not look at the screen.
Wow.
Because it was so disturbing. So
which were the parts? What was disturbing to you? All her scars, or?
Well, you remember when she checked herself into, I don't know what you call a rehab center?
Yeah, and then there's the younger girl who's with her.
The roommate I don't want to spoil it for
tough.
people.
Yeah,
but
that's tough. Yeah.
what the roommate does to herself, it was just awful.
Yeah, yeah.
I could not watch that. But there were other parts that I couldn't watch. And I almost wish you didn't tell me about this show.
The Skip and Josh podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. To interact with the show, send an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Follow the show on Twitter and go to Facebook to like the show page. And now for some final thoughts from the guys.
I have one little thing I wanted to end the show with, which is a nice little tidbit of information. And I don't know if you had anything.
Well, you go first.
Well, it's about our number one band from last week. Our favorite Canadian band of all time, the Tragically Hip.
What about them?
They're going to make their first appearance live at the Junos.
Oh, I heard that they were getting an award, but I didn't know that they were actually going to physically be there.
Yeah, so they're going to perform at the 50th annual Juno Awards, and they're actually going to they're going to perform with another singer, Feist. You know the singer?
Oh,
Feist?
I've heard of Feist.
She's a female artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think she opened for them on a tour. That's how they know her, apparently. So yeah, they're gonna make their first appearance on the stage at the Junos.
But did they say what song they're gonna sing?
No, I mean I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's like it's fantastic news. It's interesting, I have the press release. It's like it's their first televised appearance since Gordon Downey, their the actual singer of the band, passed away, which was in 2017.
Okay. So here's something that is actually bugging me.
Oh God, this is great.
So you get junk mail all the time. Everyone gets junk email all the time, right?
Oh, email, yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah. Whether it's in your work or your personal email or whatever.
Yeah, well, you get much more than you think. Your spam filter catches 90% of it.
I know, but it still goes into the spam folder, and then sometimes legitimate emails go into the spam folder.
Of course, yeah.
So I always look in the spam folder just to make sure there's nothing legitimate there.
Right.
Here's the thing, though, and I'm sure you do the same thing. I have two personal email addresses. One is the one I use when I sign up for stuff because I don't want to get spam. And then I have one which is my real email, and I don't use it to sign up for anything.
I used to do that, but I got lazy. Now I just use one.
So the one that I use for legitimate purposes is my Gmail account.
Mm-hmm.
And Gmail has always been really good. Hardly any spam at all in the, 5 or how many years that I've been using it. And I always got a lot of spam to my Yahoo address because that's the one that I use to sign up for all these things.
Yahoo's famous for that. Yahoo, as soon as you sign up for a Yahoo account, the minute you get it, you've got already like 10 spams.
But now the last, 3-4 months, it's been the complete opposite. I get no spam to my Yahoo address, and I get a ton of spam to my Gmail account. A ton. Like, not normal amount of spam. Normally, you get 1, maybe 2 per day or 1 or 2 per week. But literally, there was one day I woke up, and I always just check to see, and it shows you the number. You don't even have to count them, right? It shows you how many are in that folder. There were 21 new spam emails in my spam folder in Gmail. And I'm like,
that's amazing. This
is not normal because I don't use my Gmail account to sign up for anything. So I Googled this. Funny enough, I Googled this and it's a Google product, right? It's Gmail.
Right.
So I'm like, what is the story here? Why am I getting all this spam and how can I stop it from coming? So there's all these long threads of people complaining about the exact same thing as me.
Wow.
And so one person said that it's Google doing it intentionally because they're getting paid by all these sponsors who are sending you the spam. I'm like, okay, well, if they're doing it intentionally, there's nothing I can do about it. But how do I stop it from coming? Because I don't want to keep going and emptying my spam folder every day. So one person wrote something and he said, or maybe she, I don't know, said, actually don't empty your spam folder and eventually it'll stop coming. So I tried that for a few days. And sure enough, I haven't emptied my spam folder. I haven't received a new spam in about 3 days.
But how does that work? That's wild.
It's because they know everything you're doing.
They know everything you're doing.
They know that you've emptied it and they want to fill it up again. But if you don't empty it, it's like, okay, he hasn't emptied it yet. We're not going to send him anything new. And yet I know the trick now because I haven't received a new spam since May 12th. And this is after getting new spam every day for almost a month.
It's amazing, though. They do know everything you're doing. Like, honestly, they do know everything you're doing. Like, you're not as much on social media as me, but you must have this happen to you just by browsing the web. If you search for an item, like, that you're going to buy, forget about it. The minute I search for an item, I get an ad on my Instagram, I get an ad on my Facebook, and then any website I go to has those ads. Everyone.
100%. It's happened to me so many times.
It got to the point where it still gives me ads for stuff that my wife will search for, even though we're not on the same account. but it must know IP addresses or cookies and relate. Like it knows. It just knows.
It does. 100%. It knows.
It knows. We're living in scary times, Josh.
For sure.
That's a great episode. I'm glad we did that show, Josh. Next week, or maybe it's in 2 weeks, we'll decide. We are going to do our favorite cities. And I know we left it last week as like any city that you might want to go to, but I'm going to stick to like only cities I've been to.
Oh, no. I'm doing only cities that I've actually been to.
Okay, perfect. That's what we're going to do. Cities we've been to. And then we'll have to maybe come up with a new topic next time.
It's okay. I already have the next topic.
Good. The pressure's on you, so
yeah.
I'm glad you have the next topic. That's
do.
good. All right, so to all the listeners out there, go get vaccinated. It's important. Do whatever you got to do. Get your vaccine.
Yes,
and
agreed.
I'll talk to you next time.
Have a good week.